agenda were I would say very dense information items, and I'll quickly just summarize them. It took the whole day, a whole day of hearings. One was an update on the cannabis cultivation waste discharge regulatory program that's under development in the North Coast Water Board, detailed discussion of that. And then also a comprehensive overview of addressing roads and discharges from roads throughout the North Coast region. And we think of the timberlands and the vast rural areas and some agricultural areas, but also roads from the cities in North Coast region, and a nice job that staff did to tie in initiatives we're very interested in with the low impact development and just sort of reinventing our public works and roads. And our own, this ties in with our work with the Caltrans general permit on stormwater and trying to tie in TMDL compliance. And so I brought that to staff's attention. They're very aware of that. So roads matter in water quality, and it was really a great job by staff to look at that. Finally, a great deal of information on the update on the Klamath Basin water quality improvement activities. Again, lots of folks on the ground, watershed stewardship efforts of all flavors, and it's a very inspiring story where it's all coming together in a basin that, as they said, is the size of the state of Maryland, and it includes, Oregon, and the Department of Environmental Quality representative from Oregon was present and did present. So it's great to see that kind of collaboration. Second, I do have a little bit of good news. EPA, I want to thank them for awarding a grant to our city of Santa Maria, California. I reported on visiting their efforts to integrate wastewater, stormwater, water supply, and groundwater management in the city of Santa Maria. And the EPA has recognized their integrated planning efforts. 5 communities in the nation were awarded over $300,000 for grant money to do integrated planning of these multiple aspects of water management. The recipients were from Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, Missouri, and of course our own Santa Maria, California. So I wanted to congratulate them as they developed their asset management approach to prioritize their investments, including innovative approaches such as green infrastructure, the low impact development that I alluded to. And so that's an opportunity for them to also work with their agricultural community more. And we've offered grants to them to try out innovative ways of treating nitrogen, because they do have a significant groundwater nitrate issue in the Santa Maria Valley. And then finally, moving on, speaking of national perspective, yesterday was a pretty large event that I attended in the Bay Area, held by the Stanford Woods Institute, of which San Francisco Bay Regional Board member Nusha Ajami, she's involved in organizing this, collaborating with the Hamilton Project of the Brookings Institute of Washington, D.C. So it was a national meeting on new directions for U.S. water policy, really focusing on California, but also water in the West. And the featured speaker was our own Governor Jerry Brown, and he really dove deep into the water action plan that I was just talking about, went through each 10 of the action items with our water action plan with a national audience. And the MC was former Secretary of the Treasury Robert Rubin, and he made remarks that our groundwater legislation really shows leadership that the nation can learn from and appreciate California taking on its challenges seriously. And that's also what Facebook Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg was there to emphasize the importance to the economy for sustainable water supply, and not just for economy, but for social and environmental sustainability. So it was a great message to remind everyone the importance of sustainable water resources management. So many folks there that I can't go over the whole list, but our friend Peter Glick there from the Pacific Institute provided some information on climate change, and we covered some of the issues that we talk about a lot as far as economic incentives for water conservation. And finally, maybe since I took some notes on what our governor talked about, You know, he emphasized that California can lead on water, as we've done with renewable energy and high technology. It does mean we need to bring regions together, north and south, different sectors, different interests, and it's a real challenge that's going to test our governing system. And I appreciated him pointing this out, how important what we're working on is. And finally, if he should be reelected, he said, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to have a very exciting ride over the next 4 years. So I thought I'd pass along his good wishes to fellow board members. Thank you.
I think the real quote is the bumpy ride, though, right?
I've had my seatbelt on for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll start off with last Wednesday. I attended the first annual Compost Summit. And this was an opportunity for the industry and those that rely on compost materials to have a dialogue about regulatory issues, emerging technologies, and market trends. And so I had the opportunity to speak with them about our proposed compost general order. And it was a great opportunity for me to kind of get up to speed with what staff's been working on, and I really want to thank staff for helping me in that presentation. Talked a lot about the multiple benefits of composting in terms of the value that composting can bring with low impact development and also greenhouse gas emission reductions. And I focused quite a bit on the need for us not to have our blinders on as we move forward because of these multiple benefits, and for us to be flexible while at the same time to protect water quality. Last week I was on a panel. Aqua had a regional meeting in the southern part of the San Joaquin Valley, and the focus was on the new groundwater legislation. There was a sort of a feisty and robust discussion the night before where a lot of the water districts and those in the ag community got to air their grievances. And then thankfully the next day I felt was a very useful discussion. A lot of talk about fact versus fiction as to what's really in the groundwater legislation, and of course lots of questions as these entities are starting the process of the first phase, which is pulling together a groundwater management entity. So a lot of talk about, you know, how to do that and what tools they can utilize as a result of this legislation. Let's see, on Saturday, I went to Tuolumne County and presented at a community forum that they have, that they had called Building a Water Use Efficient Community. And they had a 2-day forum, very well attended by community members that are interested in seeing what more they can do. And it's interesting, they are already, I'd say, a shining star in water conservation. They thought that the situation was going to be worse than what it turned out for them, so they implemented water conservation measures early on, and as a result, a savings of between 38 and 42%. And so they are, this community group is interested in going further. They are also concerned about their long-term, you know, supply, their water supply. So they're looking at other water supply opportunities and operational flexibility with lake levels over at Pinecrest. But their focus here was what more can they do on conservation. So it was a good opportunity to hear about some of the great things they're doing there on turf removal, gray water systems, and that sort of thing. And then yesterday, board member Spivey Weber and I had a great time in Sacramento Valley. We spent the day with officials from the California Waterfowl Association and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we were at Gray Lodge Wildlife Area and got to experience a lot of birds, some migratory, and they had a good discussion about water supply challenges and flexibility and also the efforts that the waterfowl community, all of the agencies, Department of Water Resources, our staff has been engaged in order to get the wetlands, the minimal supplies that they need, and so they did a good job explaining the sort of the migratory patterns, and I guess in the Klamath area they are of course seeing challenges as well. So and in terms of the food source for the migratory birds. And then they also had a good discussion with us about some of the permit challenges that they face because these wetlands areas also have to engage in permits, and so at times they see challenges with multiple issues that they're confronted with. So it was helpful to hear from them about that.
And I'll just follow up slightly with the tour that we took yesterday that Dee Dee just described. One issue is and I think this is something that we as staff and board members, we need to be encouraging stakeholders who are experiencing uncertainty about permitting and what can be done and what should be done, and this would be regional boards as well as the state board, because as an example, they may have a permit for application of a herbicide for a weed, a problem weed, but they're finding it doesn't work, and so they're experimenting. And so they're not that they're using different chemicals, but they're using different amounts and all that sort of stuff that's not in the permit. And so we need to be much more welcoming to permittees who are on the right path, who are trying to do the right thing, but are uncertain about what's going on. So that's just one example. There were several others that came up. Another one that I was particularly impressed with, because I've run into it several times, and that is that we, particularly as we're the state is embarking on these groundwater management plans and characterizing of what a groundwater, what the various areas groundwater looks like. In fact, I suspect we do not know our groundwater as well as perhaps we think we do. And this happened in Santa Ana. That's why when they did their salt nutrient plans, they completely changed the configuration of what their groundwater looked like, because they found out it didn't look like what they thought it looked like. And this came up at Gray Lodge. They suggested that there were some changes or there were some characteristics of the groundwater that were different from what was expected. And so it's just underscored the value of these salt nutrient plans and getting up-to-date information of what we're really working with. I ran into the same thing with Mojave. So I just want to emphasize how important it is to start to consolidate some of these various activities. And the last thing that I will report on is I visited the Division of Drinking Water in Orange County. Tam had already been there, and I was so impressed. Unbelievably wonderful staff, very talented, particularly in areas like IT, and even where there is funding talent, all of them, no matter what they do on a regular basis, they go out and do inspections. So they actually know what their systems look like, even if they're an IT expert or a funding expert. And so I was very impressed. I will be visiting all the Southern California drinking water offices over the next month and a half. And then I'll start on the Northern California. There are lots of them. But it was really good. And so I urge my fellow board members to do this. And I think we'll have a much bigger and better discussion as to what the opportunities are for all of us next year. Okay, now Items 3 and 4 will be taken up and voted on unless there's a request that they be removed. No?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, we have an informational item on the drought emergency, and after that, we'll take a break. I understand it's going to be short. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm John O'Hagan, Assistant Deputy Director for the Division of Water Rights. Although it is short, I want to assure you that Division staff is working hard on all drought-related activities. I just wanted to give you an update on Deer Creek. As you recall, back in May of 21st of 2014, the board adopted an emergency regulation for Mill, Deer, and Antelope Creek, all tributaries in the Sacramento River watershed, due to insufficient flows to specific fisheries for all protection of fisheries. So that regulation was adopted. On October 10th, the Department of Fish and Wildlife informed the State Water Board that adult steelhead are present and currently migrating in the vicinity of Deer Creek. The flow in Deer Creek at that time was 9 CFS. On October 14th, the Deputy Director for Water Rights issued a issued an order, a curtailment order that ceased diversions for all water right holders in Deer Creek starting on October 15th at 5 o'clock. The order provides that flows must be maintained at 50 CFS. They can continue to divert if the flows are at 50 CFS. Stream flows after the order, after October 16th, went from 9 CFS up to an average of 55 CFS. Now, there was some rain, but the average is really due to reduction in diversion demands. So that's the only update I have for you.
Any questions?
Yes. Any progress on voluntary agreements?
There was a voluntary agreement attempted on Deer Creek, but it was just a single party, so the executive director did not accept that as a complete voluntary agreement on the Antelope or Deer Creek watershed. So we haven't had any other ones. The Antelope Creek and then Mill Creek agreements are still in place.
Any discussions on voluntary agreements?
There was discussions with Fish and Wildlife, I believe, but I'm not up to date on any other discussions.
No, it is the Department of Fish and Wildlife that has been entertaining the voluntary agreements. My understanding is they're still reaching out, but have not been successful in that watershed to date.
It probably goes without saying, but the Mill Creek and Antelope Creek situations, are the flows sufficient?
Yes,
Or-
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Oh, but along those lines, those two systems have voluntary agreements. So nothing's triggered because the voluntary agreements are effective, or?
I can't, I'm not familiar with that situation there, so.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I apologize.
Oh, the question had to do with Antelope and Mill, and whether the voluntary agreements are effective in not having any event that's triggered.
My understanding is that those agreements have been effective, but that the department is looking potentially, at re-upping those agreements, and there may be some modifications in their provisions to make them more consistent with our emergency regulations.
Les?
Yes, those voluntary agreements are still in effect, so therefore the regulation does not come into effect since those are still in place and the flows are okay.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm interested in the anecdotal aspect that, the voluntary agreements are in place, as I know, And as a result, the flows are at levels. I'm not saying one benchmark or another, but they're at levels that the participants in the voluntary agreement agree are sufficient to protect fisheries.
That's correct. The flows are consistent with what was agreed in the voluntary agreements.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will take a break for roughly 5 minutes. We'll try to convene back here around 10:30.
I do think we had one comment card on this item.
Sorry.
If you wanted to
On the
take it
drought?
before the break.
I didn't expect that. I'm sorry. Tim O'Laughlin, didn't you get your time earlier?
Yeah, we have maybe a quick question and a quick comment since Mr. O'Hagan's here and we asked this last time. So two questions, and I'm particularly interested in the San Joaquin River Basin. How many inspections and how many enforcement actions have taken place by the department in the San Joaquin River Basin? And I'll take an approximation.
I can't give the exact number for the San Joaquin, but we have conducted over 800 inspections in the curtailed watersheds. As far as enforcement actions, there have been none issued, but that does not mean that enforcement actions are not being considered.
Perfect. Thank you, John. The reason I rise on this particular issue is I think it's important going forward, and maybe a lot of times the regulated community, rightfully so sometimes, takes a little beating now and then. But in this instance, I think it would be nice if the State Water Resources Control Board, you have a great public information officer, you have the ability to access the press, is to put out something and say, look, we've done these inspections, and we've looked at enforcement. We have no enforcement issues. It appears that the regulated community has stepped up to the plate in regards to the drought and is working with other people and meeting their obligations as members of the state of California and trying to make everything work through this drought. And I think that'd be a very positive statement going forward into the next year, because we're going to have this issue come up again, and I think it's a positive reinforcement that people learn from this. We're going to come back to you again. We have meetings coming up on the San Joaquin River Basin about addressing issues in regards to water supply availability and how we're going to operate if the drought should continue into 2015, and we'd like to come back and present that to you. But rather than having a regulated top-down effect, I think it makes sense that people know what their water rights are, they've addressed that, they're working within the confines of the system, and I think that's a positive message that we could send out. Thank you.
Tom?
I'd only comment that I think, that I'm sure actually, that we will do a post-mortem once we are through this season of inspections. My understanding is there may be some enforcement actions as our advisory role. We don't know the details right now. There might be other messages and lessons that we can point out through this process, but I do think it is important that we get the word out as to what we've learned as a result of this process, and we will do that.
Great, and thank you. And we will convene at 25 till 11.
He's confessing, Michael. He's confessing.
Yes, I'm in trouble.
Okay, we're ready to get started. Mr. Howard, will you please introduce item number 6?
Yes, item number 6 is consideration of a resolution to adopt the policy for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Once the board adopts this, I think starting January 1, all of the laws pertaining to this will no longer be in effect, and will instead be replaced by this. But I'm sure we'll be told about that by Darren and his staff. Thank you.
Staff, you can make a presentation because this is new. However, we have two cards from individuals who are in support. So there's no opposition at this point to this item. So we don't need to go on and on and on. So.
Well, with that, Chair Spivey Weber,
I second the
I
motion.
move the vote. Yeah. Darren Paul Himes, Deputy Director, Division of Financial Assistance. And let me just introduce quickly the staff I have with me. Ann Hartridge, who you know, Christopher Stevens, who was here a moment ago, and Pete Sampas with us, who is one of our new staff from Drinking Water. And I will be very quick, but I did want to point out that, so as you are all infinitely aware, and everybody here, that we inherited the Drinking Water Program on July 1st. And if you count on your fingers, you don't even need to go to your second hand to realize that we're only several months into this, and we are here bringing you a major revision to one of the programs. And so in kind of a self-congratulatory mode, I would like to congratulate my staff for how fast they actually worked magic in creating from The example we had in the Clean Water SRF program, a policy handbook approach for the drinking water SRF, which I think will have innumerable amounts of improvement as you go forward. As Tom mentioned, this will replace the regulations that the program currently operates under and repeal several of those on January 1st. And so we have this awkward transition period, but I'm sure we can handle it as we work there and work forward on this. And I think there's probably only one other thing I would point out in interest of folks is this policy comes as kind of a pair. The policy sets the main framework, but each year as we bring you the intended use plan, there will be adjustments to the program in that. So people should basically kind of consider them a pair with each year we get to update the intended use plan and adjust things like the grant amount caps or other parts of the program. So we're really striving to be flexible, nimble, fast, all those things that people wanted from us. And I think just by the mere fact that we've delivered this, staff have delivered this excellently written policy for your consideration today, that we've demonstrated that already. And with that, I'll wrap up.
I do have one request, and I noted that US EPA suggested that we put into this handbook some guidance on how to handle climate change. And my thought was that this is not, it's not just drinking water that needs to do this. It's drinking water and the clean water SRF as well. And so when would you be able to bring something forward that could apply to both policies so that we can, because we're investing lots of money, lots and lots and lots of money in structures that are going to be around for 50 years, many of them. And so we really can't dawdle about taking on climate change. So can you give me some guidance as to when you might be able to bring something forward to apply to both SRFs?
Sure. So let me say that upon that comment, I kind of had the same thought, but I went through the same kind of terror I think that the individual or the communities often face when they're facing the same kind of dilemma. And I think we have some inherent things that as we try to consider a policy that would adjust that we need to be cognizant of. So it's certainly, from my own personal basis, been one of those long-standing kind of dilemmas you struggle with in your professional career, right? We are striving to get cleaner water all the time. We often require people to put in more and more intensive treatment, and as a result, that more intensive treatment in many, many instances requires a higher energy usage as a result. And so we're trading one environmental media's quality for another potentially. And so we do need to be a lot smarter about it. So I think because of that kind of complex nature of it, that it's going to take us a little bit a while to talk to some really smart people about how we want to pull that together. So kind of my goal for you would be to have something to the board in say like about 9 months or so that we could consider, so that we have time to have some sessions where we can get together folks that want to talk to us about this and bring those ideas in and then do that. It's going to be a really fine balancing act to incentivize but not harm also our primary missions of protecting water quality and to keep projects rolling along. But I think, as you mentioned, it's certainly the ultimate of worthy of goals to try to accomplish that.
9 months is a little bit longer than I was expecting, but as long as there are milestones, and I turn to Tom for this as well, that there are milestones along the way so that we're not waiting till the end of month number 8, but before we get started. We need to start soon because, as you're right, we do have a lot of things to think about. And I volunteer to help after I get back from vacation. So anyway, thank you very much. I have 2 cards. Do the board members have any questions? Okay. First will be Michelle Pla, and then Omar Carrillo.
Good morning, Vice Chair Spivey Weber and board members. My name is Michelle Pla,
and I'm here representing the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And you received a letter from Michael Carlin, and he asked me to be here today to specifically thank you for your leadership from the board, from your commission here, and to the staff, and to also congratulate the staff on how speedily they've taken on the drinking water program, and specifically the drinking water SRF program. The major comment in Michael Carlin's letter, and again, Michael Carlin is the deputy director, the Deputy General Manager of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, and his major item in the letter was to encourage the State Board to seek approval from the Environmental Protection Agency to make this a 30-year loan program, not a 20-year loan program. And I want to thank you again and thank the staff for their response to the comment, which was that they will be working with the EPA to obtain that if at all possible. So I want to thank you again for that leadership, and we hope to be a very active partner in both the drinking water SRF as well as the clean water SRF. Thank you.
And you'll have some ideas as to what to do about climate change, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Definitely, I'd love to work with you on that.
Okay. Omar Carrillo.
Good morning. Good morning, Omar Carrillo, Community Water Center. Here to support and definitely thank staff, the board for their leadership on this issue. You know, part of this process wasn't easy, and it actually came forward in a document that was 48 plus pages or more, actually, if you had all the attachments. But it was actually easy to go through and figure out where we're going with this, and that is key and critical to having communities engaged in this process. So moving forward, having all communities considered and making sure that they have the resources and not invincible. So consideration of private well owners, private state smalls, people who are running out of water. So this document starting to get us there. We appreciate staff meeting with us and also continuing to improve in this program. And also, the only comment I have is continuing to work on, which was mentioned earlier, on kind of the issue of the caps. We have communities, previously there were caps, it was like 3 million and then 5 million. There was this really odd process to get more resources. So we want to make sure that some of the communities we're working with need a lot more resource than that. And I know that part of this process and also the IUP will address that. Secondarily, we're Community Water Center is part of the ongoing transition of this program, and as part of Cindy Forbes' team and Darren's team in trying to continue to work through these issues. We see that collaboration being fundamental and critical, and we thank you for all the great work.
And you too will have some ideas on climate change, right? So you have at least a committee of 2.
3, because you said you would be on it.
Yeah.
Pardon?
It was 3 because you volunteered yourself as well.
Oh, that's true. Do I hear a motion?
With many, many thanks to staff, I will move this item for adoption.
Yes, and I second the motion, and I second the thanks to staff. It's an amazing accomplishment, but it wouldn't have been possible without the great help from all the stakeholders through the transition, the task forces, public involvement, of course the drinking water agencies. So thanks to everyone for a great accomplishment. I second the motion.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, move with the change sheet.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's passed. Next, we'll move on to the public hearing. I have a statement, a public hearing statement that I will read into the record. Good morning. This public hearing is called to order. My name is Frances Spivey Weber, and I'm Vice Chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. The purpose of this hearing is to receive oral comments prior to this board's consideration of adoption of the proposed draft utility vaults permit to replace the existing utility vaults permit under Order 2006-0008-DWQ. Anyone wishing to make a statement should fill out a blue speaker's card if you have not already done so. The cards are available at the back of the room. When making comments, please identify yourself by name and affiliation so we can have these on record. Speakers will be called in the order in which I received the cards. If you are not sure whether you wish to speak today and want to wait to hear what others have to say before deciding, please fill out a card now and mark it if necessary. This hearing is being recorded. There will not be sworn testimony. The order for presentations for this hearing will be as follows. First, the staff will give a brief presentation on the draft utility vaults permit amendments. Then we will hear comments from interested parties. And again, I believe we have only 3 cards. So, you're on.
Thank you. Good morning, Vice Chair Spivey Weber, members of the board. My name is Victor Lopez. I'm a staff engineer in the Division of Water Quality and Wastewater MPDS unit. I am here today to present information pertaining to the MPDS permit renewal for discharges from utility vaults and underground structures to surface waters. The current permit expired on July 19, 2011. The existing permit, although expired, it remains effective.
Is your microphone on?
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So I'm going back. The current permit expired on July 19, 2011. The existing permit, although expired, remains effective until the State Water Board reissues a new permit and the new permit becomes effective. Now going into some background of the permit regulates short-term intermittent discharge from utility vaults to surface waters. The original permit was adopted in 1996, and it was renewed in 2001 and 2006. Under the current permit, there are 68 discharges enrolled, covered under the permit, and they account to about 1.5 million utility vaults and underground structures throughout the state. The proposed permit will regulate utility companies that include suppliers of cable television, electricity, internet, natural gas, and telephone services. Now I'm going to go over some of the major changes that we're proposing in the permit, and I want to emphasize in the fact that we vetted a lot of these changes through an extensive review process with the stakeholders and dischargers. The proposed permit will include the addition of numeric action levels for pollutants of concerns. When exceeded, NALs will serve as indicators that the dischargers' best management practices may not be controlling the water quality from their vaults. Dischargers may need to evaluate VMPs and consider amendments to their VMPs and pollution control plan. I want to mention that NALs are not numeric action levels, numeric effluent limits, and that exceedances are not considered permit violations. The proposed permit will require 2 studies. Study 1 will require dischargers to fully characterize their effluent from their dischargers to determine if reasonable potential exists for priority pollutants. And to determine if these pollutants contribute to an exceedance of water quality criteria. In keeping with the State Water Board's coastal compliance resolution, the proposed permit will allow dischargers to conduct the study individually or in a coalition. In addition, the data collected for this study will be used for future decision making. Moving on to study 2 requires dischargers to conduct a study to characterize the discharge from utility vaults that discharge into municipal separate storm sewer systems that have direct discharge to areas of special biological significance. I want to mention that existing statewide permits require that utility vault companies conduct this study, so that's why we included this study in this permit. Similarly to study 1, dischargers may conduct the study number 2 in a coalition or individually. We posted the draft permit for comment periods for comments on August 1st, 2014. And during the 30-day comment period, we received 6 comment letters. And I want to mention that we have prepared response to comment document, and it's located in the back of the room on the table if anyone is interested. Now I'm gonna go over some of the major comments that we received during the comment period. The first comment is regarding study 1, the effluent characterization study, and it mentions that the study should only be conducted if receiving waters are impaired. Our response to that is that we need this data to determine if reasonable potential exists for priority pollutants, and also we need the data to determine if we need the data for to be collected to determine if waters are impacted. Moving on to the next comment this is regarding communication between MS4's agencies and utility bulk dischargers. And our response to that is that MS4 agencies have the authority to require additional requirements in addition to what's in the current permit. And also the permit includes language that requires dischargers to comply with MS4 notification requirements. So moving on, the next comment is regarding the availability of locations of dischargers and utility bulks to MS4 agencies. And we want to mention that due to the large service territory and the number of utility bulks, it is infeasible to provide this information. There's also some homeland security concerns and and also other security concerns in the national level. We want to mention that all of the applications that include the pollution prevention plan, which includes a map of the service territory of the utility companies, are going to be posted on the utility bulks program website, which is available to the public. And the next comment is regarding the same mapping of pollutant sources, and this came as a concern of posting the location of all the utility bulks in a map. And we included language in the permit that specifies that Homeland Security Act and other security laws take precedence over the permit. These searches have to provide justification on why some of that information is not included in their application. The last, we received some late comments, or we actually received some comments prior to the board meeting, and we included a change sheet, which is also available to the board members, and also is in the back available to anyone who is interested. And in that change sheet, we included changes to pages 13, 17, and 19, and these are minor changes to language. With that, staff recommends that the State Water Board adopts the utility bulks permit with the changes included in the change sheet. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I thank the members of the board, and I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions? I have 3 cards. Everyone is in support, so let's have no more than 3 minutes for each comment. First will be Hazim Gaber, Frederick Jacobson, followed by Jeremy Loren.
Good morning, Vice Chair Pebby Weber and members of the board. My name is Hazem Geber. I'm the Water Quality Manager for Southern California Edison. SCE service territory is about 50,000 square miles, make us one of the largest utility in California. We own and operate over 400,000 utility vaults in 7 regional boards as we serve our 14 million customers. The ability to quickly dewater utility vault and underground structures is vital to SCE operation. Dewatering of utility vault is necessary to prevent worker safety hazards and to protect our equipment and provide timely access to repair and maintenance of infrastructure. The permit provides regulatory consistency for the California utility companies by establishing NPDES permit requirements to ensure the protection of water quality. The best management practices, the monitoring, the special study, and reporting requirement that will be implemented by the regulatory companies in response of this permit will advance the protection, environmental protection in California. The development of this general permit is a result of a strong partnership for the past 3 years between the State Water Board staff and some utilities coalition. And I would like to offer our deepest appreciation for the time and thoughtfulness shown by both groups during this process. The development process included many opportunities for each other to educate ourselves on how to advance the permit renewal, and most importantly, balances the water quality needs and the feasible safe operation practices. I would like to extend our sincerest thanks to the board staff, Phil Icerino, Victor Lopez, Russell Norman, and Diana Messina, and the participating utilities. I'd like to conclude in support of adoption today. Thank you.
Thank you.